Jehovah God has the purpose of gathering his people out of Satan's world into his congregation. Christ Jesus promised us that he would be with us until the conclusion of the system of things. When we see this huge organization worldwide, we know that Jesus is fulfilling his promise and Jehovah is executing his purposes in a wonderful way. This huge organization has many services or ministries associated with it. It can only be accomplished by means of Jehovah. He is the orchestrator of this organization. The Apostle Paul, here in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, explains in great detail how Jehovah organizes his organization. If we look at verse 14 of 1 Corinthians chapter 12, it says, "Indeed, the body is made up not of one member, but of many." So Paul is using the body, the human body, as an analogy of the organization, and it has many members. Each individual member is assigned a ministry. Let us read here verses 4 through 6. It says, "Now there are different gifts, but there is the same Spirit. And there are different ministries, and yet there is the same Lord. And there are different activities, and yet it is the same God who performs them all in everyone." This reminds us that this organization does not belong to any man. No human is putting it together. No human is moving it along. It is Jehovah God himself. And we are helped by Paul in this chapter to understand our relationship to one another. Let us read here verses 17 and 19 and 21. It says, 1 Corinthians 12, 17, "If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If it were all hearing, where would the sense of smell be?" 19, "If they were all the same member, where would the body be?" And 21, "The eye cannot say to the hand, 'I do not need you,' or again, the head cannot say to the feet, 'I do not need you.'" We all understand we need each other. We do different operations or ministries, but we need each other very much. And that's why it says in verse 20, "Now they are many members, yet one body." We are still one body. We belong to the same congregation. Now this brings us to the text for today in verse 22. Where Paul says, "On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are necessary." So weaker in this context, what does it mean? It does not refer that this member is deficient or not able to do their work. No, it just means that this member may be, from a physical point of view, seem weaker. Maybe we have an older brother suffering with some illness, and he cannot do as much as he used to do. Does it mean that he is not fulfilling his assignment, or that he does not fit into God's arrangement, or that he is useless to Jehovah? Not at all. He may seem to be weaker. But we understand how that works, and we appreciate God's arrangement. Look what it says in verse 23. "And the parts of the body that we think to be less honorable, we surround with greater honor. So our unseemly parts are treated with greater modesty." And this is God's arrangement. Verse 24 says, "Whereas our attractive parts do not need anything, nevertheless, God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that had a lack." So there is no division in the body. It cooperates. You do not have members looking down on others because of their inability or limited circumstances. That's why it says in verse 25, so that there should be no division in the body, but its members should have mutual concern for one another. How does this work? How has Jehovah arranged and orchestrated this organization? It's beautifully described by Paul in Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 16. Now in verse 15 here in Ephesians 4, Paul says that let us by love grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ. Christ Jesus is the head. There's no pyramid structure. Christ said your leader is one. And then it says, from verse 16, the first part of verse 16, it explains how Jehovah God organizes his people. It says, from him, from Christ, all the body is harmoniously joined together and made to cooperate through every joint that gives what is needed. So it is harmoniously joined together. It's like the human hand. The fingers are joined by the palm. The palm is joined to the wrist. There is a harmonious joining together. And then it says here, they are made to cooperate. So they have been designed to fit together, to cooperate, to work together. This is what Jehovah God does. But then the second part of the verse shows what we need to do. It says we need to give what is needed. And then it says when each respective member functions properly, this contributes to the growth of the body as it builds itself up in love. So that is our function, to give what is needed, to do what is required. Jesus illustrated that so beautifully for us in John 13. You remember the time when he washed the feet of the disciples. We turn there to John 13. And if we look at verse 12 through 15, Jesus explained what he did, and he explains the purpose of this. He says, when now he had washed their feet and had put his outer garments on, he again reclined at the table and said to them, do you understand what I've done to you? You address me as teacher and Lord, and you are correct, for I am such. Therefore, if I, the Lord and teacher, washed your feet, you also should wash the feet of one another. For I set the pattern for you, that just as I did to you, you should also do. So imagine, here is Jesus, the head of the congregation, got down on his knees and washed the feet of his disciples. And then he said, we must follow that example. So what is the purpose of this arrangement? Each of us fit into God's arrangement. All of us have a function, a beautiful function. That is to serve one another. Give what is needed. As it is stated there in Ephesians, the final part there of verse 16, as we read, this contributes to the growth of the body as it builds itself up in love. So Jehovah has made this wonderful arrangement of gathering his people together. He will take this organization, this congregation of people, through into the righteous new system of things, where we will experience wonderful blessings. But right now, it is our opportunity to cooperate and to work together in love and unity. And that way, whether we are weaker or stronger from a physical point of view, does not matter. We're all part of the same body.